Help me reach 2,000 subscribes. Support the video with a like and leave your thoughts in the comments. I read every comment. Thanks. I didn't expect that night to change everything. I thought it would be just one last wild night, a fleeting escape before the chaos of our wedding plans and the looming stress of life as adults really hit. My name's Daniel. I'm 29, an IT analyst in Chicago, and my fiancée, Emma, has been the center of my world for the last 4 years. We met at a coffee shop during one of those rush mornings when life felt like it would never slow down, and somehow, amidst the noise and the caffeine, she smiled at me like she knew all my secrets without ever asking. That smile had stuck with me, haunted me even, and I told myself I would do anything to keep her happy. Life after the engagement had become a series of compromises, tiny disagreements disguised as planning stress, subtle arguments about family traditions, seating arrangements, and who we invited to our engagement party. Emma had always been adventurous, spontaneous, and a little unpredictable, which was part why I loved her so much. But lately, there was a flicker in her eyes I couldn't place, a restlessness, almost a shadow behind her laughter. I tried to ignore it, chalking it up to wedding stress. But that night, I noticed it more than ever. We had agreed to take one night off, a final fling, a night to feel young and untethered again. No responsibilities, no planning, no interruptions, just us. We rented a small cabin by Lake Michigan, a place with dim lights, a roaring fireplace, and a view of the water that looked black under moonlight. The drive there was quiet at first. I tried to start conversation, but Emma seemed distant, her eyes scanning her phone constantly. "I just need a second," she said softly, tucking her hair behind her ear. I nodded, pretending to be patient, trying to convince myself that this was normal. Everyone needs moments alone, right? The cabin smelled of cedar and pine, the air crisp and biting outside, warm and intoxicating inside. I lit a fire while Emma unpacked, and I watched her from across the room. Something felt off, a tension I couldn't shake. We had dinner, simple sandwiches and wine, but her appetite seemed smaller than usual. She sipped her drink, occasionally glancing toward the window as if waiting for someone or something. I laughed at a joke I'd rehearsed in my head. Something silly about a coworker, and she smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. It never reached her eyes. That's when a tiny knot started to form in my stomach, the kind you try to ignore, telling yourself it's nothing, it's nothing, it's nothing. Later, we sat by the fireplace, close enough to feel the heat, but not touching. I reached out to take her hand. She pulled back slightly, a small, almost imperceptible flinch, but enough to make me hesitate. "Hey, are you okay?" I asked, my voice lower than I intended. Try to mask the worry creeping in. "I'm fine," she whispered, barely meeting my eyes. The night went on. We played music, drank wine, and tried to laugh at old movies we used to love. I thought maybe the magic would come back. Maybe this night would remind us why we fell in love. But every time I leaned closer, every time I tried to bridge the distance, she seemed to retreat. It wasn't just physical. It was a wall forming between us, one brick at a time. I remember walking to the balcony to take a deep breath. The lake was dark, the moon shimmering like silver on black water. I could hear the wind rustling through the trees, but it didn't calm me. I had a feeling I didn't want to have, the kind that sits heavy on your chest, making your heart race and your thoughts spiral. Then she said it almost casually, as if she were mentioning the weather. "Daniel, I think you should know." I saw him again. I froze mid-step. "Saw who?" My voice caught, too loud in the quiet cabin. "Mark, my ex," she said, looking down at her hands. We spent the night together last week. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to ruin this night, but you should know." I blinked. The words hung in the air like smoke from the fireplace. My stomach dropped, my chest tightened. I couldn't breathe properly. The fire crackled behind us, the shadows dancing across her face, but I couldn't focus on anything except the betrayal that had been hidden in plain sight. I wanted to scream. I wanted to demand answers, explanations, a reason why. But there was no reason, just a cold reality that the person I had trusted with my heart had given it, at least once, to someone else. My mind raced, and I felt the first wave of something I hadn't expected. The kind of anger that isn't loud or violent, but slow, precise, and terrifying in its stillness. I didn't know if I should leave the cabin, drive away, or collapse right there. I just stood, staring at her, the firelight reflecting in her eyes. She looked nervous now, finally realizing she had shattered the illusion of us. Why would you do this? I managed to whisper, the words barely forming. Emma shrugged, avoiding my gaze. I don't know. I needed it. One last thing before everything changes. Everything changes. Those words cut deeper than any scream, any fight we had ever had. They were not just a confession, they were a sentence. And in that moment, I realized that one last wild night had already destroyed the foundation of what I thought our future was. I didn't know how I would survive the rest of the evening. I wanted answers, confrontation, maybe even reconciliation, but all I felt was a cold, hollow shock of betrayal. And that's where the night ended, not with fireworks or laughter, but with silence heavier than any words could carry. I stayed on the balcony for a long time, listening to the wind, trying to convince myself that I could process what she had just confessed. The fire crackled behind me, but I didn't look back. I didn't want to see her face, at least not yet. My hands were trembling, a mixture of anger, disbelief, and something deeper, grief. The grief of realizing that the person I had promised my life could betray me in the quietest, most intimate ways imaginable. Eventually, I turned and walked back into the cabin. Emma was sitting on the couch, knees drawn to her chest, staring at the floor. She looked smaller somehow, fragile. But that didn't erase what she had done. I sat across from her, not close, just far enough to keep the space I needed to keep my dignity intact. I need to understand, I said softly, trying to keep my voice steady. Why, Mark? Why now? She swallowed hard, finally meeting my eyes. I don't know, she whispered again. It's not like I planned it. I guess I wanted something alive, something I've been missing. I didn't mean for you to find out this way. I nodded slowly, letting her words sink in, though they offered no comfort. She didn't understand. The damage wasn't her confession. It was in the act itself. She had crossed a line, shattered trust, and I was left to piece together the pieces of my own heartbreak. I got up, pacing the cabin. The wood floor creaked under my feet, echoing the pounding of my heart. My mind ran through every moment of the past week. The subtle glances, the late-night texts, the fleeting irritability I had brushed off. It all made sense now. The tension, the distance, the flicker in her eyes. It had been a warning I refused to see. Finally, I stopped and turned to her. I can't pretend this didn't happen, I said, voice firmer now. I can't go through the rest of our engagement pretending everything is fine. Not after this. Emma's lips trembled, a soft, almost inaudible sound escaping her. Daniel, I love you. I didn't mean to hurt you. I shook my head slowly. Love? If this was love, then I didn't want it. Not if it came with secrecy, betrayal, and the destruction of trust. My throat tightened, but I didn't cry. Not yet. Not here. I had to stay steady, had to keep control over my own emotions before I did something I'd regret. I can't stay, I said finally. Tonight was supposed to be one last escape, one last night where we remember who we were. But it wasn't that. It was this. And I can't live in a life where what I thought was our bond can be broken so easily. Emma's eyes widened, panic creeping in. Please, Daniel, don't. I have to leave, I interrupted, standing and grabbing my jacket. I need space. I need to think. I can't trust anything else until I figure out if this is the person I'm supposed to marry or if this isn't love anymore. She nodded silently, tears finally spilling, but I didn't wait for her apology, didn't wait for her explanation. I walked out into the night, the cold wind biting at my face, grounding me, making me feel alive in a way that sitting in the cabin, surrounded by betrayal, never could. I drove aimlessly, not caring about direction, my hands gripping the wheel as thoughts crashed into each other. I replayed the night over and over, the warmth of fire replaced by the icy sting of reality. One thing became clear. I could no longer be a part of a story that had already been rewritten without my consent. By the time I returned home the next morning, I knew what had to be done. The engagement, the plans, the wedding, it was all over. I sent a message to Emma, short and precise. We need to talk. Today, it's over. She called immediately, desperation in her voice. Daniel, please don't do this. I made a mistake. I swear I heard you, I said calmly, cutting her off. I saw everything. One mistake doesn't erase the betrayal. I can't go back. Not now. Not ever. She begged, pleaded, tried to explain herself, but I couldn't listen. Not this time. Not when the trust that had taken years to build was demolished in a single night. I felt a strange mixture of sorrow and relief. Sorrow for what could have been, relief for the clarity that had finally come. I packed up the rest of my things the following day, leaving behind the small tokens of our life together. Photos, gifts, shared books, all reminders of a world that no longer existed. I left a note on her pillow. I wish things could have been different. Goodbye. Driving away from our shared apartment, I realized something profound. Pain like this doesn't kill you, it sharpens you. Betrayal like this doesn't destroy your soul. It forces you to reclaim it. And love? True love isn't about clinging to someone who can betray you without hesitation. It's about finding the courage to walk away, even when your heart still whispers her name in the quiet hours of the night. Weeks later, I saw Emma once at a mutual friend's gathering. She looked at me, her eyes full of regret, but I didn't flinch, didn't waver. I smiled faintly, a polite acknowledgement of the past, and turned away. The wound was still there, raw in its memory, but I was free now. Free to rebuild. Free to rediscover the person I had become before love and betrayal tangled themselves into one impossible night. And as I walk away, I realize that one last wild night had not ended in regret. It had ended in awakening. The fire that had once burned between us was gone, but from its ashes, I found something stronger, myself.